Welcome to the show, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about a subject that I know, whether I know it or not, for real, affects a lot of us, especially women. And whether you're finding this on YouTube, hi, I'm JJ. This is my show. What does that mean? I'm going to talk in case you're just searching Dr. Jane or this topic. This is my podcast. And so if you're new to me, just know I'm going to have an opinion. I'm going to have things to share. So it'll be a conversation when we go back and forth. If you're listening to this on the podcast, I'd love you to come meet Dr. Jane. So of course, as you heard, we've done a video. It's on YouTube, jjflazanes.tv. So first, before I get into it, let's welcome you, Dr. Jane. Thank you so much for being here.
It's such a pleasure. I'm delighted to be here with you, JJ.
So the reason I reached out to you, besides my own personal wanting to do some work with you, was because I had a client recently. Well, actually, it's been, I don't know if since the last time I saw you. Let me catch you up. Let me catch you up to speed as to what I'm doing in the world now. I think you and I met back in 2018. I feel like it's 2018 when Doug and I first got together. And at that time, I had already sort of moved from the wellness personal training world into sort of emotion and spirituality, law of attraction, emotional processing. And so since that time, I really have been focusing on helping people heal emotionally. And because as a trainer and understanding quantum physics and metaphysics and epigenetics, I've always really felt very strongly that the emotional piece of us is what makes us, and that our outside world, what we eat, what we do, is very important. But what's more important is sort of how we vibrate, where we are with our own emotions, what we're storing, what we're holding, what we're expressing, what we're repressing. Like that to me has always been the number one most important thing. So without even knowing that. So I've been sort of doing that. And what has happened is I've created a certification. I've had 2 rounds of those. People go through the certification. Then I took another 6 months and I didn't have it be a certification. I called it a deep dive. So I took people on a deeper dive. I tried a 3-month session, sort of condensing the material. Then I tried another 3-month session. And so all along this way, I've had a couple people who have, because I've been kind of becoming more of an expert in core wound work, like really fine tuning how we can make shifts in healing core wounds. But what has come out of that, because when people come to the table with their core wounds, are the other traumas that didn't happen in the family necessarily. Some, yes, but some no. Some happened a little bit later. And most of it for women has become sexual trauma. And looking at how to heal sexual trauma and where to start. And, and I would love to dive into that with you because it's sort of what you do. Now, I know for the people that have listened to the podcast, they have heard your bio, so they know a little bit about you. Why don't you first just tell the people who are listening, who are watching this, who found us on YouTube, a little bit about your background so they have an idea of what you bring to the table for discussing this topic.
Absolutely. So I've been married almost 40 years. We'll be married on the 18th of next month, 40 years, which is absolutely stunning to me. Can't believe it. And I'm the grateful mom of 6 kids, all grown up, some adopted, some not. And so I have been in the journey of committed partnership for all this time with my beloved Jim. And along the way, I got a PhD in human sexuality, kind of a longer story of how that happened, because I was a stay-at-home mom for many years. And then, just dove into this whole area of sexuality, sex coaching. And I ended up getting the PhD. It was this kind of a funny thing. I was previously a nurse. So I trained as a nurse at UCLA. And so I often say to people, my husband can play doctor and nurse with me at the same time, which is funny. But it's been a really interesting journey, and I'm fascinated every single day that I get a chance to work with clients and talk with men, women, non-binary, identifying people about what it is that makes them feel open erotically, how we can connect with ourselves and with another human or other people if we're not just in a one-on-one relationship. Some of my people are in thruples and other groupings of sexual experiences that people have. So that's me. I'm a grandma. Married for forever, mom of 6, and just deeply grateful that I get a chance to talk about these interesting things all the time. And I'm a hypnotist now, since you and I, well, I don't know, I think I probably had done that when we talked, but last, but I am doing hypnotherapy or hypnosis to help people with some of these questions also these days.
Would that be one of the tools you would recommend that people
look into? Totally. Yeah, it is. It is so well for me. Hypnosis, receiving hypnosis when I'm able to do that with my own hypnotist, it's just such a wonderful way to like get back into the subconscious mind and kind of uncover and kind of re-parent myself if it's something from my childhood, or re-explore things that I've experienced as a younger woman or even in my married or adult life. It's been powerful.
So
Really
when that
powerful tool.
so when that topic came up,
Mm-hmm.
About healing sexual trauma and sort
Mm-hmm.
of where to start with that, I first want to identify in my mind, and maybe you can add to it if I'm missing anything, or if I'm,
Sure.
um, to me, sexual trauma, we could have, I think you call it like big T, little t, like in terms of trauma, there's rape. There's sexual assault, there's being molested, whether it be by a parent, a sibling, a family member, a neighbor, non-consensual touching happening as a young child. And I would consider those bigger traumatic things. Yes.
Yeah.
But I also consider, like, I mean, my first time having sex wasn't necessarily not traumatic. Like it was pretty traumatic, and it was consensual. But it was for the reasons that how it happened, and that I didn't realize what I was doing, and then I was changing my mind, and then I was freaking out, and right, like that wasn't at all like a good thing. And then since then, I realized that my sex life since my first, like, there's just a lot of dysfunction, which I think there is for a lot of people, especially women. I mean, I'm not going to say that, I shouldn't say that men have dysfunction too, but I feel like women have more complexity. It means more. There's so many more attachments to its meaning and things for sex and sexual encounters. So to me, even just having a bad first time, and then since then really not understanding what it was like to be in a safe partnership, that I was in situations that weren't safe, which led to, having situations that were specifically not connected or safe, so that there could be more freedom because of that. So anyway, I just want to talk about like what other conditions, because I think this is going to hit a lot of people in different ways, because I'm sure that most people, especially at our ages and younger, aren't necessarily feeling sexually fulfilled in their lives, even with a partner they love, who they're married to, who they think is amazing. I bet you that there's still people out there that know that they're not at their sexual peak of expression. And I don't mean that in you're pole dancing or wearing lingerie all the time. Like, I'm not going to that extreme. I'm just saying, in your physical body, in your emotional health, in your expression of how you receive pleasure, I'm going to say that I bet you a lot of people out there are not even 50% of what they probably have the capacity for.
Totally agree. And it's so interesting to me that when we talk about self-care or any of the other kind of grounded kinds of ways that we might explore ourselves, meditation, yoga, I'm a yoga teacher, whatever, all these things that we do, sex and sexuality seldom to never shows up on that list of things that we might do for ourselves. Like, to explore ourselves sexually is not really one of the things. We might talk about mindful eating. We might even talk about walking the labyrinth and all these other things that we do, but we don't usually think, or as a group, as a cohort, we don't typically talk about sex. I think it's hugely important for us. And I think you're right, JJ, that so many of us are really we're experiencing a very tiny fraction of what we might be able to experience in our own selves. And I don't mean performative sex, like you were referencing, lingerie wearing, kind of like that type of thing that I think we kind of assign to sex. We think, we're supposed to act a certain way, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about being in our body, receiving a partner, which we literally do. If we're somebody with a vagina, we're having penetrative sex with a partner, we're probably receiving some kind of penetration. We might be having a penile penetration if it's a male partner, or we might be receiving, some fingers or a toy. We're receiving something into our body for most of us. And that is energetically really powerful for us. And it can be really invasive for us if it's not consensual on a deep level, not just like a surface level of the, okay, like we can do it, like it's not a bad idea. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an enthusiastic, passionately held, bring it to me kind of feeling that is available for us when we are really connected to who we are.
So I realized that so they're, like thinking about hypnosis and knowing that that's an option and that you do that. And there are others that offer that also.
Mm-hmm.
Are there things that people can be doing themselves? Like what would be some of the things that someone might be able to experience or do or practice in order to start? Maybe they can't heal their sexual trauma themselves. And I do realize and recognize that sometimes also having a partner and to do some of this work with a partner is the only way truly to have a different experience, because by ourselves, it's very different than when we're with a person, just like in relationship coaching and relationship work, it's how you are with your new partner or your partner in a different way. So what could people be doing to identify where they are and then what they potentially could start doing by themselves or,
Yeah. Well, it's, I think just recognizing up front that this is part of who we are. And many women, have what's referred to as responsive desire. So this is, Emily Nagoski's fantastic book, Come As You Are, talks a lot about this, introduces this concept of responsive desire, where like, if I'm a responsive desire person, I'm going to be turned on when you're near me and you start to touch me or kiss me or do something that is pleasing to me. So I'm going to get turned on then. So in response to you, rather than spontaneous desire where I just kind of bubble up my own turn on, kind of alone or just by myself more independently. But even if we're a responsive desire person, because if I'm a responsive desire person, my partner may or may not know how to turn me on, may or may not bring me the signals or kind of know how to initiate with me that in a way that allows me to really get there. But still, even if I'm a responsive desire person, I can start to recognize my own sexuality and start to kind of cultivate myself. And I'm not just talking about physical touch or masturbation or, self-pleasuring. I'm talking about like my own kind of sense of pleasure in my life, and my sensuality in my life, and touch or different things that I might enjoy, different types of pleasure-based things that would allow me to start to feel more comfortable in my own skin. I think a lot of the problems that we run into have to do with body issues, body dysmorphia of various levels. It's just rampant for all of us. Anything we can do to start accepting our own body is a really beautiful way to begin feeling like we can become more sexually connected to ourselves and somebody else. And just like that's a great starting point. And then a lot of times when we do that, let's say I'm starting that, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to start working on some awareness of my pleasure. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to be more mindful in my eating, for example. I'm going to, just like kind of start enjoying things differently. Take some, maybe if I like baths, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be more luxurious, maybe even. At this point, I may run into some things that are difficult for me as I think about what's happened in my life over the years. I may kind of realize that some of the ways that I've treated myself or I've been treated by others, interactions I've had with other people, partners or others, that those things really have kept me a little bit tight and contained and even very injured or very, very retreated from myself. And that's when I might do some journaling. I might start to, maybe that'd be a place to get some support from either a friend or a provider, some kind of a professional to help me kind of move through that. But when we start focusing on ourselves like more sensually, it's almost like we're on a journey and we come into this place and we're like, oh, here's some stuff. I remember that time the partner said this to me about my body and I felt really bad about my breasts, for example, or he made a comment about my nipples, or something happened and he made a comment about my scent and I felt uncomfortable. There's just different things that I may have experienced along the way that then point out to me that this is a place I could stop and rest and I could think through this and allow, or even just feel through this and allow myself to start to heal these little micro or even major traumas of things that have happened to me over the years.
Let's take the case of rape for a second, but I want to go back to the before we deal with that very dive into the deep end on that one, becoming accepting of our own body. So through my years so far of sort of dealing with some of this and like studying and learning other people's tools and techniques and things and mirror work, like looking at mirror work or at for me the emotional saying of like the only way their only way out is through,
Mhm.
where potentially if someone, doesn't look like, I've met people who don't like to look in the mirror, and I'm like, well,
Mhm.
hold on, stop. Like that's a place to start, is like, I'll have people
Mhm.
do Ho'oponopono in the mirror. And
Mhm.
sometimes I'll ask people to do Ho'oponopono in the mirror naked, because
Mhm.
it's about sort of becoming, like you said, coming back to how you treat your body and how you talk
Mhm.
to and accept your body. And so being able to use a tool, or to be able to put some music on, or to like allow yourself to be seen
Yep.
by yourself, not in front of other people, but just yourself,
Yep.
right? Would that be something
Yep.
that could be used as a becoming or accepting your own body before getting into being with somebody else?
Oh, for sure. And it's so challenging. That right there, one of the, people like me do mirror work often when we're together, we're growing our own capacity, becoming more comfortable with discomfort. I was recently at a 6-day workshop with a bunch of sexologists like me, and we do mirror work in a group. So like it's a mixed group, and there's 20 people or 27 people in this case from 7 different countries. And I and other people, we all disrobed alone in front of a mirror and spoke the words that were coming through in our own, the inner talk that was there. I don't know. It's a very challenging. It's a challenging exercise that to love your body as you disrobe in front of others. And for my clients and most people, like I do this for a living. So for me, this is like as a work exercise. But to disrobe in front of ourselves alone is very difficult. So difficult for most people, for many people. There's many people who've done the self-acceptance work on their body, which is just so critical for us. But for many people I talk to, just becoming naked in front of themselves and in front of a mirror is can be devastating, and just the harsh voice that's there. And of course it's very difficult then to become naked in front of another person when even alone with your own voice you can't see yourself. And this is not just for women. Men have this as well, but it's really very strongly held for us that we feel like we're supposed to be perfect. And in the current climate that we live in with with Insta everything, we see everybody, supposedly looking the way they supposedly look on on the platforms. And we're critical of ourselves. Absolutely. That's a beautiful place to start, is mirror work. And any kind of way that we can start writing or letting go of that stuff, using our words, just, like allowing ourselves to just flow out all of that, and then reframing in some kind of affirmation, so that we start to realize this is our earth suit. This is the body that has given us all the pleasures and pains and experiences that we've ever had throughout our life. And it's never given up on us. It's been with us, and it's been, our home all this time. And, it is us. And accepting our body, I think, is hugely important for the sexual journey that we're on.
Well, I'm thinking that it doesn't kind of have to be the place we
Yeah.
start. I mean, well, because if we don't do it, then, we're turning off the lights, we're taking our clothes off in the bed.
Mhm.
How do we receive pleasure if we can't appreciate what's being happened? I mean, part of it's that receiving. And
Mhm.
if I can't, and receiving somebody else's love and attention,
Mhm.
if someone else is saying you look beautiful and you think you look terrible, and you're unable to receive that love in that way, I
Mhm.
don't know. I guess I kind of feel like at this point, now that we've talked about it, like, I don't know, like what that kind of feels like a precursor to a prerequisite, if you will, to some of the work for all of us. Because if we can, it's funny, years ago, I was doing a program with a hypnotherapist. It was called the 6-week Beachbody program. I was doing the personal training piece, the exercise and nutrition. She was doing the hypnosis.
Mhm.
And it was a package program that we had. And part of it was called Date Your Body.
Mhm.
And I kept that program for a long time. And I've kind of given it to like 2 people. And I'm like, I held it, and I'm holding it because I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'll bring that back, because it feels in this moment very appropriate
Mhm.
to date your body, because it's not just about liking the way I look. It's about receiving the pleasures, the receiving love, forget sexual, receiving love and
Yeah.
attention from ourselves.
Yep.
And for this earth suit that we're in right now, to be
Yeah.
able to
Right.
move past that, so that can be not something that's getting in the way
Yep.
of, because if you're constantly concerned about how you look, I mean, that's going to take you out of sex. You can't be in your body if you're in your head. I'm in my head a lot, so I can speak to that. I'm in my head a lot. So I can't imagine being in my head more than I am and trying to receive pleasure and forget never have an orgasm because you're always in your head.
Yeah. You're talking to so many people. You have no idea. I mean, this is it right there. And, it's a tragedy because it just feels, it's not just sex either. It's not just a sexual thing. It's like just feeling at home in our own skin. And what a blessing we can give to ourselves when that starts to happen. One of the things that happened at this deal I just went to, this workshop down by Calistoga, California, is I left my body shame there to the best of my ability. Like it was this rustic retreat center. I was just like the leftovers of it, just like I did my best to just drop it there and walk away from it because it is so heavy. It's so heavy to carry that forever. And at my age, I don't want that anymore. Like, I just don't need it. It doesn't serve me. And it just keeps me from feeling the pleasure and the freedom and the playfulness. To me, playfulness is so huge here. And we think about playing around when we were younger. We talked about playing around. It's so important to play around sexually, but we're become so fraught and nervous and uptight and critical of ourselves and got to have an orgasm and have to have it a certain way. And if they don't know how to provide this exact stimulation, then we'll never come, or we won't ever have whatever we're supposed to have, some kind of all these checklisty kinds of ways of thinking about sex. And then, of course, we're talking about sexual trauma here. These things quickly take us out of the game, and using the game with intent, because when we're playing, then it's a fun, lovely game that we're sharing with another person. Like, I love it, that part. I love being able to do it that way instead of like having it be, so kind of scary. It's almost like we scare ourselves about sex. It's like we're anxious, we're uptight, and like, oh, good, we did it. We're going to check it off the list,
There is a lot of pressure. And
There is.
You said about the body shame. It's, what did you say? What did you say? Like, it stops me. It's unnecessary. And I want to say it's unnecessary for any of us.
It's heavy.
It's unnecessary for any of us.
It is. It's a heavy burden. It is.
Heavy burden.
Yep, it is. And it was true. It was interesting, JJ, this group of people, men, women, I think we were all binary identifying people, but there were some people with, who just the most stunningly beautiful bodies by the outside world, who carried the same shame. Shocking. You just look at this a person from the outside, you're like, how is that possibly a problem for you? But it's still in that person. It's in us. We've absorbed this. It's like this toxin that's in us, this sense of body shame that keeps us from being able to be free. And we can only free ourselves. No one else can free us. We can only free ourselves from it, because it's our own self-talk that we're running this tape of negative self-talk and seeing ourselves and then criticizing ourselves for these micro problems oftentimes. And sometimes they're big problems. Oh well, we're alive, we're living in these bodies. What a wonderful blessing to be walking around in these bodies right now and meeting another person, who also is living in some body. And then some of my favorite clients are like the farthest thing from Instagram, like star type looking people. And they're just like absolutely adoring every luscious moment that they have together. And they, I don't know, it's just so much fun to watch people who don't feel like kind of burdened by some kind of a societally based body standard that keeps them from enjoying every moment with each other, which is like so fun to watch. And that's so inspirational.
So what's coming really, really strong through me right now, two things is, one, I think that this body shaming piece is an upper limit. I think it's a societal upper limit that we almost feel we have to have because we are not supported in celebrating. We are not supported in accepting and celebrating ourselves, because then we're called in what you think you're full of yourself, you're arrogant, you think you're the best. So it's like, so we stay in this shame piece almost to sort of fit in. And to be,
Yeah.
I'm not saying, and trust me, I have it, I have the shame piece too, but I'm just saying I'm hearing this very differently right now that I've never heard before, that I really think it's an upper limit in us being able to receive more love, joy, success, and abundance in our sexuality, in our own lives, because it's almost like because God forbid I accept myself as I am.
Yeah.
And the other 20 people that I know don't, then it looks like I think there's something wrong with you. And why don't you be more like me? It's like, it's arrogant. It's,
Yeah.
it's right.
Right. Yeah. There's some of that for sure. Like, but at the same time, when we do accept ourselves and do celebrate ourselves, we're giving permission to other people for not, to allow them to do the same thing.
All right. We're going to work on this, everybody. Date Your Body may be making a new appearance in the near future, because I just received that whole thing very differently than I ever have before. Because as you said, because I'm sure I would be the same in a room full of people. I'd be judging myself against everybody else. And even if I felt good about myself, I would dare not say something. I would dare not celebrate that, just because I wouldn't want to be judged by everybody else.
That's interesting. Yep. I remember someone saying that.
So God forbid that I accept myself, because then you'll think I'm a bitch.
Yep. Right. Exactly. You got to have at least a good amount of body shame and self-doubt to fit in.
Exactly. And to be accepted, and to have someone not be threatened by you, or to relate to you, or to connect with you. Because if you don't, no one will connect with you. No one will love you, or feel like they'll feel that you're separate, which we are all looking for connection, not disconnection. But that's a reason that we disconnect with people, right?
Yeah. Agreed. Totally
so
true.
Okay, that was a rabbit hole. Sorry, guys. I mean, not sorry, but I'm just saying I said rape, and then we went down this rabbit hole of of body shaming and self-acceptance. So let's go back to the traumas and the original conversation, because that was great, and there's more to come for that. But the healing sexual trauma, and how one may start to heal sexual trauma. Obviously, the bigger T's could use some support, and Dr. Jane can help you with that, and other people can help you with that. But I still want to lead them to you in a way that, what can they start doing again in this piece of accepting your body, and accepting yourself, and forgiving yourself, and ho'oponopono in the mirror naked, and movement and dance, and enjoying your body and being in your body. So what else to heal sexual trauma?
Yeah. One of the things I think is really important is, so you've come through your life and something has happened, and some of the things that have happened are just absolutely devastating and heartbreaking. And I hear about these things in this very office where I'm sitting. Oftentimes people will tell me something that they've never spoken out loud before. They've never said to any other human being what happened, or shared their story before. And so being witnessed in your story is really, I think, one important piece. But it's huge that we not let what that is that happened, and whomever it was, or whatever happened, how it happened, that we don't not let that rob you of your precious life. It's your life, and your life now, and your life in the future, and what's happened in the past. It's letting it go to the best of our ability, to the best of your ability, is so critical and so important, because I see so often that people are there and this thing has happened. And of course, there many things happen that trigger these memories, and they come unwanted into a moment. Say I'm with my partner and something happens, and I'm triggered about something horrific that happened to me in my past. Now I'm not able to be in my body with my partner in this moment. And so not only has this thing happened to me in the past, but it's happening to me now, and it's happening to me next time, and next time, and next time. And so I'm never able to have what I deserve. I deserve to have a full, authentic, pleasure-filled, lovely, wonderful, self-expressed sex life, love life, romantic life. I deserve that. Everyone deserves that. If you're listening to this and you've had some kind of experience, like so many people have, that's been traumatizing for you, and you get triggered, it's coming back to you in the current time. And that is the tragedy. I mean, you can't change the past, but you can change what's happening now. And that person, or those things that happened in the past, they don't deserve to take away your life. now, your life, your love life, your experience of your body now. And I think that a lot of times we focus so much on what happened back then and how horrible it is, which I as well, gosh, some of the conversations I have with people are so painful for that person, for me. But what I want is, what my client wants is to not have to keep having it, not have to keep reliving it, because that's stealing the rest of that person's life. It's taking it away. And so what can we do about that? Well, if depending, getting help is oftentimes really important. Being witnessed is really important. And somehow realizing that you deserve it. Like, to me, that feels really important. You deserve to have everything that you want. You deserve to have it right now. You deserve to, even though that happened, to go forward and have something completely different. Like, you deserve to have great sex today, period. And you still are going to have situations where you get triggered. You deserve to speak that out and have your partner hear you and hold you in a way that allows you to go through that instead of being completely derailed. You deserve a partner who can be with you and allow you to have what's happened and have however it's triggering you, and have a great sex life. That is, I just feel so passionately about that, because I think a lot of times we're like, well, I'm broken, I don't get to have that anymore. They hurt me then, and it's going to continue hurting me forever, and I can never heal from that. I just push back on that, because I've seen so many times people are able, we are resilient, and you survived it. You got through it, and you deserve right now and forevermore to be able to have sex and a sexual relationship, a romantic, wonderful, loving, playful relationship that is just like everybody else's and is wonderful, period.
I love that, because I think you're stopping. Okay, so everyone, don't take a beat. If you know me, you're going to feel me here. If you don't know me, you might be offended by what I'm about to say. But it stops the victim story. It stops the perpetuation of. So what happens is we get on a momentum, right? We have a story, and the story goes like this. This bad thing happened to me. I didn't ask for it. I didn't want it. I had no choice. It was done to me. It caused me pain. It caused me lots of strife for many, many years. I now have anxiety. I have physical pain, blah, 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 all the things. Okay. And that I'm not disputing that. One of the reasons why I just did a show recently with someone who teaches nonviolent communication, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. You guys have all heard this before on the show if you've been watching the show, and I mean listening to the show. But Dr. Marshall Rosenberg wrote Nonviolent Communication, and one of the stories in the book. So I'd recommend everybody get the book. One of the stories in the book is using nonviolent communication to stop a rape mid-rape. The woman who's being raped literally uses the tools in the book, which is to go into what must you be going through, what's real for you right now that you're doing this to me. Because that's how Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, when he was young, he lived through the riots and people killing each other. And he thought to himself, what gets into people that we kill each other? And that became his lifelong mission, to really understand psychologically what gets into people, and so this whole system is about being able to stop for a second and understand what was going on with the other person. And you may think, I'm not going to, but most of us going to go, no, I'm not going to do that. What they did was wrong. Okay, what they did was wrong, but why did they do it? The compassion piece of being able to understand that someone was motivated by their own pain that had nothing to do with you could create a different story, that now you get to see that person was in so much pain, it really wasn't about you at all. You just happened to be there. And for some of you, maybe it was about you, because maybe it was a power struggle. Maybe there was, there's a history there. But if it was a random thing, there was someone who's feeling powerless, who needed to take power from you. And as Dr. Jane just said, that this stopping the story in the now, saying, I deserve, by continuing to perpetuate the story of what had happened, you continue to give your power away to the story that happened in the past of why you can't receive or be in the moment right now. Besides the PTSD, besides the fact that you can be doing things like tapping and hypnosis, and I'm sure traumatic body work and all kinds of different things, psychedelics and, whatever, changing your brain stuff, or your brain patterns and stuff. But I think it's also that I do appreciate that you're giving women permission to stop giving their power away, to what happened to them, because that is not who they are. That was a moment on someone's path that led them to where they are now. And I'm a big believer that you can decide to take the traumatic pieces of your life and use them to keep you stuck, or you can use them to transcend and transmute into why in this life school at this time you incarnated to have that all happen, because there's a reason for it. Because otherwise, if there wasn't, it was random. Now we become in the victim mentality of shit just happens and bad things happen and I can't nothing to do with it. And in that place, we have no power. But if we can say, I didn't like it, it was horrible, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. And I wonder if somehow I'm supposed to learn forgiveness in this lifetime. I wonder if somehow I'm being charged to live a karmic debt of somebody in this lifetime. And maybe there's a bigger reason I don't know about, but boy, doesn't that feel just a little bit better and more powerful than deciding that it was wrong, bad, and I'm gonna stake my stake in the ground to say how bad and wrong it was, and that's all I'm going to talk about for the rest of my life, preventing me, upper limiting me from receiving joy, from having good sex again, from being present, from having a relationship, from being functional in a marriage or in a sexual encounter, because we keep dragging the story of your point of view only, when there's another point of view to be taken in consideration, potentially, that may switch the story, that may not erase the pain, but diffuse some of the charge around the story. Would you?
Yeah, I feel that forgiveness is a poorly understood kind of experience, but for me, forgiveness, and not forgetting, but forgiving, understanding from another person's point of view, and forgiving at a very deep level is an act of self-care, of extreme self-care. It's an act of huge courage as well, because when I do that with someone who's harmed me, I release in myself the pain that I'm carrying, the anguish, the anxiety, all of the things, the anger, all those things that are in me. I am somehow like cracking it up a little bit. It's got a little bit more air in there. It's got a little more space in there. I'm still very aware of it. I still see it. I still know it. It was still wrong. All of that is still true, but I am just not as weighted down by what was before, when I'm able to forgive others, that this other person, and myself for whatever part was in it for me, because we're in an interaction with each other at all times. When in life we don't live alone, these are interactions, these are moments, these are situations that happen. Not blaming the victim, but just knowing that I make choices on certain days. I do certain things. These things happened in my life, and I was an actor. I was a player. I was there doing these things, and these things happened. And now I'm going to forgive myself. I'm going to forgive others, and that way I don't have to carry that heavy energy of that having happened, and I can go forward. And just as you mentioned, JJ, doing the modalities, the tapping, the EMDR, the other work, hypnosis, other things that we know to help the body let go, because that's the thing that gets harder, is our body still is reacting to certain things, and we need to help our body feel safe again, so that our body doesn't like react differently and keep us, kick us out, basically, of presence and pleasure and the other things that we deserve. That's work that's important to do, at the same time that we're doing the deep forgiveness of ourselves and another person.
No, that's important. There's two parts to this. There's the mental decision making, point of view, storytelling, the story. The story
Right.
it holds weight. And then there's the physical, neurological, PTSD, traumatic response.
Exactly.
There are tools we have: EMDR, tapping, hypnosis, psychedelics, other things that you can, even probiotics and changing your gut, right? And then some of the somatic practices that we talked about already, with the Ho'oponopono in the mirror naked, doing some dancing. Like, there are definitely things that will help repattern the brain to reduce the trauma response that we don't have conscious control over. But then I think it's, as you were saying, there's the other piece of that. Like, you can do that traumatic work on the body, but if you don't decide to leave it in the past and to move forward and to accept pleasure now, then it doesn't matter how much EMDR and tapping you do, because you keep pulling it forward into your now, right?
Yes, completely agree with that, because we're actually re-traumatizing ourselves over and over. by like represencing ourselves, and if when we don't do some of this important work, like we're not allowing ourselves to have a good life. And I think that, we do that to ourselves, and we do it to each other by creating these kind of this, like, oh, this person, these things happen to this person, it's so horrible. Sometimes this happens in therapy, sometimes it happens in other places where we're talking about and healing, but we're not allowing the person to move on. We're not giving them permission, and just like the celebration that you don't have to stay stuck and broken forever. Like, I just like celebrate that you get to have a fantastic, wonderful sex life and other parts of your life, just like everyone else. Just the thing that this happened doesn't mean that you are ripped off forever, because I think that's something that we often do to each other. Like, oh gosh, that person had this happen, obviously they'll never be happy. Not true. Not true. We know that's not true by watching different people, by our own experiences, and just by some of these things we're just talking about, that there's so much possibility for healing that is beyond our greatest, beyond our imagination, because we kind of think that we're going to, that we have a tragedy happens, and then, that defines us, and it doesn't define us.
Right.
Right.
It's actually a culmination of a lot of different modalities and work coming together in this conversation, because I'm like looking at sort of the victim triangle in this too. And also just the belief that life is always working out for me, and that, and then sacred contracts and Carolyn Mace. Like, again, if you believe this is your only life and you're here one time and that's it, and that's totally cool. That is a belief. I'm not trying to get you to change. In that paradigm, though, there's a lot of pressure potentially in all the choices that you make and how you use your time, because again, it's sort of, we're looking at like one life, one time only. If you expand to believe and to know that we're here multiple times, we come, we go, that we can't die, that we're literally eternal beings. We're in this earth suit one time, but then we're going to reincarnate in an earth suit another time. But that to look at sort of the broader point of view tends to sort of, and someone may call it spiritual bypassing. And if you don't believe it, it is. I absolutely 100% believe it. So it's not, because it's looking at it from a different point of view. So it's looking at how your beliefs shape how you focus on things, and how, when you get to the end of your life and your life review, and if this is the only life that I have, and I spent how many years holding on to a story that prevented me from having joy in this body with my relationships, is that something that's going to feel like it was a good use of time, or are you going to regret that? And if I decide that there's no rush, and then I'll be back, and then I'm here to have some fun and to learn and to expand and to grow. And that also I need to learn things. I came down here to expand, which means I'm going to be challenged with contrast of having to forgive somebody, of having heartbreak, of having loss, of having whatever. But that's just part of what we're here to do. Nobody is immune to that. We're all going to leave this physical body, and we're all going to have pain along the way. And what we do, how we decide to process it, becomes how you decide you want to do that. And I think the people that have more tools and a potentially wider point of view might tend to like roll with the punches a little bit more easily and allow in more joy along the path versus, the people that there's one thing happens and it shifts everything, and they're never the same. And you think, God, I wish they'd snap out of it. I wish they were here living, instead of in the story of the one thing that happened that was terrible, but is now completely colored and stopped their flow of life, flow of sexuality, flow of connection, flow of, joy and chi, if you will. So it's good to remember that this is a two-part conversation about the physical healing and the emotional healing.
And if we have, if it's true that we have one life and this is it, then what a tragedy to have the whole thing, colored by a bad thing that happened when we were much younger. Like, that's just, and I have clients like that, where they are in their 70s, and then, they really are feeling like something happened when they were younger, and, it's too late now to claim anything. And I push back on that too. Like, no, it's not too late. I've worked with, at one point I had in my practice, a guy who was 26 years old and a guy who was 82. So there's but still very similar kinds of energy, because we have, in our society, there's so much shame related to sex and sexuality anyway. So if we go back to like somebody who's had very traumatic event happen in their life, never spoken of it again in their, ever, and never gotten any additional help, or, in any way allowed themselves to work through it, that's a lot of wasted years of feeling really tight and frightened and not having good experiences with a partner. And, there's so many of us like that because we're ashamed about sex, and so many sexual things have happened to us that feel like they were out of alignment for us or non-consensual. So if that's you, like, get somebody to talk to and start moving that stuff through, because it's really limiting us when we can't kind of speak it, because the shame of it is like stuck in us. So then we're tightening our own selves, criticizing our own experience, our own way of being day to day in every day, which is again part of the problem, and that just kind of continues to hurt us and other people, right?
All that repression. That's all that repression.
All that repression. Absolutely. Yeah.
So you're doing hypnosis with people then for sexual trauma. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you do remote sessions because I'm sure we'll be doing some. And then you see people in person also.
Yeah. In Bend, Oregon, where I live, up here in the middle of the mountains.
Nice.
Amazing up here. Yeah. Nice. Sometimes people come here to see me. That's kind of fun too.
Good. Okay. There's lots we could go into right now. I'm feeling good about anything more about this idea of healing sexual trauma that you want to speak to.
Well, I love, psychedelics are an interesting path for people, being able to use things, I've had some experiences with ayahuasca and some other kinds of plant medicine types of experiences. I think those things can be really profound and powerful for us, particularly when held with intention, with healers and facilitators who are grounded and are provide a lot of safety for us. I think that like I love sound healing. There's breath work that can be really powerful. Any kind of like bilateral activity. I love walking for couples. I think it can be very healing, just taking kind of a daily walk with your partner, because it has that bilaterality, the right, left, and it's, crossing the brain as we talk. And if we take a certain path and come back, kind of it's a 20-minute or whatever path, and we do it on a regular basis, we get into a pattern with each other. I like intimate kind of bookmarking, a bookending intimately, so that we might have a morning practice and an evening practice of sitting together and connecting in some way, if that works for your schedule. These are the kinds of things that provides just general safety for us, a sense of being held and being secure with a partner, that allows our nervous system to settle enough so that some of these things that are more difficult, that we want to be able to be witnessed in by a partner, or just in our own writing, for example, those things will be more comfortable for us when our nervous system is regulated, because we can get so anxious. It's really hard for us to deal with even the things of daily life, let alone something that we're holding as huge trauma from our past.
I love that. Sound healing, breath work, bilateral stuff, walking. The reason why I bring up psychedelics, because now that I've been in this realm a little bit now for about a year, I can't deny its power in changing the brain chemistry and in creating new neural pathways. So that's why I threw that out there. I wasn't suggesting that you do that work or that you even are on board with that. I just had to throw it out because I've been doing so much work with it that when someone says, here's a unlike an antidepressant or a mood stabilizer that numbs part of the brain, right? Psychedelics will help to create neural pathways in the brain. So to me, it's like, if you, this is just another way to help reduce anxiety and repattern our bodies to help with traumas and things like that. So again, I'm not, but I just want to throw that out there that for you and everyone else, so that by this point, I've done so many shows on it, they're going to get tired of hearing about it. But I know that a lot of people are still unaware or afraid, and that's fine. But it is something.
Yeah, it's for people for whom it's for.
Yes. Awesome. Well, let's tell people where they can find you and what kind of work you're doing or what you might suggest for people.
Sure. So I'm at howtofixmysexlife.com. My name is spelled Guyn, so you'll see that in the show notes. What I like most is when people come to me and we just do usually a 4-session experience where we're kind of like finding out. It's like I feel a little bit like a detective, co-creating an idea with my clients about what possibly is in the way and what could shift a little bit so that they feel more authentically expressed and free in their sex life. And then we like do an I do an assessment, and there's a little plan that they get at the end. We do 5 sessions all together. So that's the way people start with me. But if you want to talk with me, just and kind of just spend some time having a coffee together virtually, then there's a place to find that on my website. That's a complimentary virtual coffee chat there. So I love that when people show up and I look at my calendar, like, who is this? We just hang out a little bit, usually in the morning, and chit chat, and I, see what I can do to help you. Sometimes I'm on Reddit. I do a lot of AMAs on Reddit, various different sub groups there. And yeah, I write an article for a syndicated column for about intimacy, and yeah, do some interviews like this, just doing the good work.
Excellent. And on some of the sessions, would hypnosis possibly be one of them?
Yes, that is something I offer to certain people. It kind of depends on if I feel like that person's particular concerns would be benefited by hypnosis. And so yes, that's something we do the assessment piece first, which I call the quickie, and then hypnosis is offered to some of my clients.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, Dr. Jane, it was a pleasure to have you finally on the show and to have this very rich conversation that's definitely opened my brain to seeing things differently, not only for myself, but for others, and having some of these tools. And now I can feel very confident, everyone out there who's listening, those of you that have had sexual trauma in some way, shape, or form, that now you at least have a bunch of things you can start doing on your own, but you also now have a resource in case you want to start going a little deeper with that. So thank you, Dr. Jane.
A pleasure.